Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. And tonight is the last night of Black History Month. And tonight we have a Black history story we're going to tell tonight. But we have on tonight with us Miss Charlene Farrington Jones of the Spady Museum in Delray Beach. Charlene, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to have you because, on this show, pretty much people think it's a sports show. But really, it's not really a sports show. It's a legends show. So anybody who's doing anything great and it's about history are welcome to be on this show. And so you are the executive director for the Speedy Museum in Delray Beach, Florida.
Yes.
Awesome.
Actually, I'm not the legend. My mother is actually the legend because she is the founder of the museum.
Okay, so we're going to talk about her too because she's one of my great educators from the city of Delray Beach. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Let me ask you about you before we get to your mother. Let me ask you about you. All right. So you graduated Boca High in 1981.
Right.
She's making us all feel bad, y'all. That's okay. She's such a baby. So when you left Boca High, where did you go to college?
I went to Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. And I got my Bachelor of Business Administration there. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Right down the street from me.
Yep.
Awesome.
In your neighborhood.
Awesome. So you got your bachelor's in what there?
Business Administration.
Business Administration.
Yes.
How do you get to where you are today? What was your career before the Spady Museum? Talk to us about that.
So I had a very eclectic path to where I am today. I did a whole lot of different things. Okay. I started out being a runway model when I first came home from school in Miami.
Awesome.
Then I was working in retail. I was there when Bayside opened up and Town Center opened up. I know you were there. And then I was in the IT department at the Sun Sentinel.
Oh, really?
I was the email administrator for a good 10 years at Sun Sentinel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And during that stretch of time is when I got married, had my 2 children, and got divorced.
That's okay.
By the time my career was winding down at Sun Sentinel, my mother had started the process of establishing the museum. And I was kind of watching her, listening to the information that she and Mr. Pompey were collecting and talking about, never having heard any of that history in school or anywhere else.
There you go.
I was like, every time I could, I would sit in their midst and listen to them talk and recount historical stories about Delray Beach and just got hooked. Wow. So as soon as the museum got to the place where they were ready to hire staff, I came on over. I left the Sun Sentinel and started working at the museum, and I've been there ever since.
Awesome. Well, I tell you, you got a great responsibility, but I've been doing this show about 2 years, and I wasn't intended to do it this long, to be honest with you. But here we are, and the reason I'm here, Charlene, is because I'm having so much fun talking about history, right? And I started this with an idea of maybe we would speak to guys from the NFL perspective, professional athletes, and so a lot of kids are looking up to those guys and, put them on the show, let them tell their story, and maybe we can inspire some kids.
That's great.
And so that's where the legends piece came from, right? And so from that, though, I did a lot of NFL guys and did Florida State. I'm going to continue to do some more Florida State, by the way. But I got in Delray Beach in Palm Beach County, man. I'm just having the time of my life talking to people that I know from way back in the day. Guys who inspired me, guys who I played with, guys who, who were even behind me, who, looked up to me as a player and all that kind of stuff. It's nothing like it. I'm having so much fun. And so let's talk a little bit about the Spady Museum.
Okay.
First of all, where are you located for everybody to know?
We are on Northwest 5th Avenue, historic 5th Avenue, because, they have since renamed southbound Federal Highway 5th Avenue as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I didn't know
that. I don't know why, but so we call ourselves the historic 5th Avenue.
Awesome.
So we're at 170 Northwest 5th, right across the street from St. Paul AME, for those who are familiar with Delray.
That's my church. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know, it's amazing as a kid, you know, of course, you know, that's my family's church, St. Paul AME. And so I would always look when I would come out and see that two-story house, right? And, you know, and Charlene, you know better than me, there were not many two-story homes in Delray, especially in the Black community, right?
That's right.
I think the next, it was the Spady house. And then the next house that was, well, I think Mr. Hurst's house was on that corner of 8th, Northwest 8th.
Right.
And third, is it third? Second.
Second. That's,
Right. And then I think Miss Sutton, Dorothy Sutton, built a home on, is that 9th?
9th.
Northwest 9th Avenue.
Right.
We didn't see anything like that. And so there's a picture of some of the Spady house, and then it was you did it over, and then now there's a Spady Cultural Heritage Museum.
Right. Now imagine that two-story house in 1920s.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes.
There definitely weren't any other homes like that in the Black community, or the white community for that matter, in the 1920s. Mr. Spady came down and built a substantial home right in the heart of what used to be called Colored Town.
Yes.
And was well known by everybody in Delray.
Wow.
Everybody. Black.
Well, it had to be a landmark for everybody. And I can imagine the people who would just walk or ride by on their bicycle or in their cars, you know, and just go by and just stop and look at that place.
Right. And in the early days, there were very few cars, and most of the people in the neighborhood walked where they were going or rode their bikes. So everyone realized Spady's home. Now, the picture on the far right is the Williams Cottage. So there was a woman who came to Delray in 1898. Her name was Susan Williams. She was and she came from the Bahamas. She was a nurse practitioner.
Wow.
So she came to Delray in 1898, and she took care of a lot of the medical needs in Delray because our nearest doctor was in Lake Worth at that time. Okay. In later years, her daughter, whose name was Agnes Munnings, built that house, that one on the far right. Okay. And Nurse Susie, as she got older and couldn't live alone, she moved into that house with her daughter. Oh, wow. And her daughter's husband. So it has kind of become known as her home, as a Williams Cottage, even though Agnes Munnings and her husband built that house. But that was built over near where the tennis center is now. And
really? Okay.
They were planning that development. We asked to preserve that house. And so the Community Redevelopment Agency moved it over next door to the Spady house, because when Mr. Spady lived there, there was nothing on that property next to him.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. Wow. Well, I tell you, Fifth Avenue was hot when I was a kid. You know, you had the Spady home, you had St. Paul, and then you had the Fifth Avenue Pharmacy right there on 1st and 5th.
Exactly.
And then, you know, on Sundays in particular, you know, we would go to a Sunday school with St. Paul, and then right before church started, we would get let out. I bet about 45 minutes before church started. And we would go to the Fifth Avenue Pharmacy. And all my friends who went to Mount Olive would meet us at the Fifth Avenue Pharmacy. It was like you got a little 30-minute hangout between Sunday school and church. Right?
And he had that big candy counter. It looked big to us then because we were little. Exactly. Candies that stretched out far and wide.
Absolutely.
Sunday school money and candies.
That's right. That's right. It was so much fun. I will never forget those days. And also some of the people, you know, that my Sunday school teachers, people who are dead and going on now, you know, it's just great history. Delray is just a great community. And it's amazing, Charlene. One of the things about with me, I'm just learning some things about Delray, which is wow, you know. Right. You know, being an athlete, of course, I can tell you everything about Anthony Penn, Greg Dobson, that group of Carver High guys from 68 to 69, right? Because I got a chance to watch them and they were my heroes. Right. I can tell you everything about them. I can name the whole team, right?
Mhm.
So I love those guys. But a guy named Oswald Baldwin,
Mhm.
I had him on the show. He's a quarterback for Carver High, I think in 1961, 63, one of those years. And we were having a conversation. He said, Bobby, you need this information, right?
Mhm.
Now, Mr. Pompey, who was really Mr. Spady, gave him the right uh, to start the sports program in
Right.
Delray in
Mhm.
1944.
Right.
And so that was a collection of all the sports and all the stars and some of the things that they've done from an individual perspective and also team-wise.
Uh-huh.
And he put it in this 39-page document.
Uh-huh.
And when I got my hands on that, so some of the men that I grew up knowing that were business owners or who was just guys that I knew from the church or whatever, we're in this. My uncle, Bobby Butler, who I'm named after, right? He's an all-conference center for the first Carver High football team. I'm going like, what? Uncle, So things like that I didn't know. And so if I didn't know all the sports history, what about all the Black history in Delray? I have no clue about.
And see, that's one of the things that I promised when I stepped into the executive director role at the museum was that Palm Beach County children, they grow up and go through school in Palm Beach County. They may not know all of the history when they leave here, but they're going to at least know that there is history, Black history that exists.
Awesome.
And that if they want to know more, they know where they can come to learn more. Because when I was growing up, I didn't even realize there was Black history in
Absolutely.
Delray. And I can't in good conscience let our children grow up and leave and not even realize that there is Black history to be known right here in their own hometown.
And not just Black history, rich Black history.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing. Our town is an amazing place.
It really is. Our town really reflects the people who came here and settled here and stayed here. It looks like us. It feels like us. Exactly. Sounds like us.
Yes.
And people from even North Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade, they all recognize that Delray has that special stamp of approval of its Black citizens.
Yes.
Not only that, but the citizens take ownership of our town. And we do not allow a lot of foolishness that goes on in other communities.
That's right.
We are on top of everything. And we have that reputation. And I'm proud of that.
Oh, we all are. And it's awesome. And even now, I love Delray. When I left Delray in 1977, Charlene, when I went to Florida State, everybody on my team knew about Delray. Everybody on my team knew about Delray. I'm going to let them know about Delray, right? And then we got a few other guys that come up and join me and play with me at FSU. Hey, listen, I always brag on Delray. When I went to Atlanta, everybody on my team, they can tell you about Delray Beach because I know one guy from Delray, right? I was going to let them know because, in my opinion, the best football players on the planet come from Delray Beach, right? Right there in that little bit of community, right? And so I've always been a cheerleader, always loved the things that I knew about Delray, which wasn't a lot, but I'm going to let you know about where I come from. So listen, let's get into it. Mr. Pompey was the founder of the Speedy Museum.
Mr. Pompey and Vera Farrington.
And your mother, Vera Farrington.
The two of them worked together. Wow. Actually, what was going on was my mother retired from teaching, and this was back in 1992.
Okay.
And took care of my aging grandmother for a year, and then started volunteering at the Historical Society in Delray.
Okay.
And her job was to assist researchers who came in looking for information. So if somebody came in and they wanted to know the name of the police officers from the 1950s, she would go with them and go through the files to pull this information out.
Okay.
So as she tells it, one day someone came in looking for their teacher from back in the 1930s. So she went to the file, found the teacher, gave the person the information. They were done. She was filing it back. And she said, well, when this person was teaching in the white school, Mr. Spady was teaching in the colored school. We were called colored
back then. Right, exactly.
She said, let me see what they have on Mr. Spady. And they had nothing. So she said, well, wait a minute. What about some of the other prominent people in the community? And she just started she took some days and just started crawling through their files.
Wow.
And they didn't have anything.
Wow.
So she got with Mr. Pompey and said, did you know that none of our history is being preserved over there? So they started collecting it themselves.
Good.
They put out a call to the elders in the community, and they started bringing their documents, paperwork, photographs, and they would meet on a periodic basis with all of their information, and they started piecing together the history of Delray from as far back as they had documentation.
Wow. Okay.
And then they ended up with like a room full of material. So they said, well, what are we going to do with it? We need to preserve this somewhere.
Yes.
Well, at the same time, St. Paul AME had asked the city to tear down the Spady house so they could extend their parking lot.
Ah, okay.
So the committee that had been meeting organized formally, applied for their tax exempt status, their 501c3.
Okay.
They got that in 1996. They put together a business plan and took it to the city in 1997 and said, basically, you know, the arrangements that you have with the Historical Society where you own the buildings, but they run the museum. We want to do the same thing from the Spady house. Awesome. Here's all the history of Solomon Spady and the house. Right. And in fact, the whole neighborhood, we want the same kind of setup. And so in 97, the city agreed and they bought the house, those two houses.
Wow, that's special.
Got going.
That's special.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about, all right, Mr. Pompey had a lot to do with Mr. Pompey and your mother, Miss Vera Farrington, started to collect this stuff and get it together and got it going, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the man himself, right? Mr. Spady. All right, Mr. Spady is originally from the Virginia.
Townsend, Virginia.
Okay,
yes.
Townsend, Virginia?
Yes.
Okay. And he did he go to Hampton University?
To Hampton University, yes.
Okay. And then how did he get to Delray Beach from Virginia?
Okay. So while he was at Hampton, he joined a national farming organization called New Farmers of America.
Yes. Okay.
And in this farming organization and, you know, through their activities, he met the man who would become his mentor, who was George Washington Carver.
Wow.
George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington influenced quite a few of the Black college-educated people from that time period in terms of their philosophies, their teaching styles.
Okay.
They all believed in teaching children not only subjects that you would find in school, but also life skills.
Yes.
They believed in educating the heart and the hands as well as the mind.
Yes. So
they taught farming and they taught manual arts, home economics, building, all kinds of, construction. They taught all kinds of classes that they knew children would need to not only continue their education, but to have life-sustaining skills when they went into the workforce.
Right.
Spady got to the point where he had graduated and was looking for a permanent teaching position. In the meanwhile, Delray was being formed, and a farmer by the name of William Robinson moved to Delray from North Florida.
Okay.
This was in 1900. He built his home in 1901, and it is still in Delray, right across the street from Mount Olive Baptist Church.
Okay.
He established his farm and, got his family started, brought his family down, and then looked around for the school that he could enroll his children in.
Wow.
And as it happened, the school had been closed for lack of attendance.
Wow.
Because Delray was, most of South Florida was a farming community.
Right.
Especially in the Black community.
Yes.
When the farming season, harvest season began, which happened to coincide with school season.
Right.
Delray residents would migrate. They were migrant farmers. So they'd be gone. They'd go up to New York and New Jersey and areas like that to farm. So the district would close the school.
Wow.
So when William Robinson was looking for a teacher, the school was closed. So it was the responsibility of the community to help find a teacher to replace him. So he started writing letters to the newly opening HBCUs.
Okay.
Hampton and Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman and Tuskegee. So one of his letters went to Tuskegee and ended up with George Washington Carver. And Carver gave the letter to Spady because he knew Spady was looking for a permanent teaching position.
Oh, wow. Man.
And that's what brought Spady to Delray in 1922.
Wow, man.
And you remember Colonel Condrey?
Yes.
William Condrey?
Yes.
Condrey told me that Spady told him if his luggage had arrived when he got here, he would have turned around and gone back home. He said because he didn't realize how underdeveloped Delray was.
Delray was, right.
Trying to get ourselves together as a community.
Wow.
He went home if he could have, but his luggage wasn't here yet, so he stayed. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing right there. That's amazing. So, we got that strong tradition. Now, let me ask you this. Was Delray named Delray at the time, or was it Linton?
It was Delray by that time.
Okay.
The name was changed because William Linton went bankrupt when South Florida experienced a hard freeze. William Linton, who the town was originally named after, and who was one of the forefathers of the town, he lost his farm. He lost everything. And then they changed the name of the town. Okay.
Wow. That's amazing. And the fact that, for someone like me, thinking about guys like George Washington Carver and, those are names you read in history books, right? He was one of a few Black people that you would see in the history books, right? And so to have someone to come to Delray and start the school education program that was sent by that guy, that's a special deal.
Yeah. And I think that's important for all of us, but especially our children to know is some of these names of these famous Black people that they hear about and learn about, they really had connections in almost every small community. They had something to do with the majority of the settlements around the United States.
Wow.
So we have direct connections with quite a few people that you would consider to be famous or well known.
Right.
We had, like, for instance, Thurgood Marshall.
Okay.
Thurgood Marshall litigated the court case for Mr. Pompey and the Classroom Teachers Association when they sued the school district. John I. Leonard was the superintendent at the time.
Right.
Gave all the white teachers raises and no raise to any of the Black teachers.
Wow.
So the Black teachers sued, and Thurgood Marshall came down to litigate the case and stayed in Delray at Mr. Robinson's house.
Are you kidding me?
It's important for us to know these things,
Absolutely. Man, see, that's the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, we have a strong history. I'm telling you right now.
Yes, we do.
Wow. So we got it all started. We got it going. And what are some of the things that y'all doing now as far as your programs are concerned at the Speedy Museum?
So we are still doing our commemorative events, our Martin Luther King breakfast. We have been doing Juneteenth for about 10 years now, even though I have to say this, June 19th is not Florida's Emancipation Day. June 19th is Texas Emancipation Day.
Right.
Florida's Emancipation Day is May 20th.
Okay.
However,
go ahead.
Because Juneteenth has been declared a national holiday,
Right.
We're going to hold the event then, but we are going to make sure we let people know that Florida was emancipated on May 20th.
Right.
And that is the west coast of Florida. There was no east coast of Florida per se. During that period of time.
Wow.
So there's a whole story around the emancipation period here in Florida.
Wow. And then it's just so much was going on back in that time as far as news traveling, across the country. It was just a different time, right?
Exactly. It was a different time. And one of the things that I try to make people understand, I want them always to remember, is that if you're talking about the United States prior to the 1930s, you're talking about a segregated community.
Yes.
Segregation was not only in some places and not in others.
Right.
Segregation was universal.
Yes.
So if you're talking about a segregated community, you need to know that there was a colored town in that community.
Yes.
And if there was a colored town, there was a commercial hub that supported that colored town.
Wow.
I get a lot of people who come to the museum and say things like, or imply that the whole story of Black Wall Street and the burning doesn't really apply to Delray. And what I have to remind them is our commercial hub was not as substantial as the one that you're referring to, but it existed.
Right.
And it was equally as important to our community as theirs was.
Yes.
Community.
Absolutely.
So it's about that constant messaging and making sure people get the story straight in their minds.
Right. That's true.
The other thing we do to help with that is we do a city tour.
Okay.
We take people on a bus and we ride them through the 5 historic districts in Delray. We have
Okay.
And we only have one that is in traditional colored town.
Okay.
So we talk about the relationship of the people when they were settling there, how they got along,
right?
The written and unwritten rules were.
I like
the
it.
results for those rules. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. We do a bus tour as well.
Well, see,
and then, of course, we have our mentoring group with our children, which is
that's telling the city's history when you do that. Right?
City history, yes.
Yeah, instead of just we're gonna go outside of town, we're gonna speak our history. We're gonna show you everything.
Yes.
And talk you through.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so history is history. Whomever is offended or gets their feelings hurt,
right,
by what took place,
right,
is none of my business.
Right.
All I'm doing is sharing with you.
Yes.
What took place.
Absolutely. And that's it, right?
That's the bottom line.
And that's it. That's it. So I was home a few days ago. I ran in there real quick. I wanted to go and see this exhibit at the Historical Society in Palm Beach County, right? They honored the 1968 Roosevelt high school basketball team.
Yes.
That the first year that the all black high schools can play with the white schools in the tournament to name the real true state champion.
Right.
They went 27-0 and won the state title in 1968. And that team was coached by Floyd Andrews, who I've had him on the show. He was coaching at North Shore High School when I was in high school, right? And so, of course, he did well at North Shore as well. So, but anyway, I came home to see that, and so that exhibit. And I know at the Speedy Museum we have different exhibits during the year, right?
Yeah.
So talk about some of the exhibits.
So we do have a Carver High exhibit.
Okay.
We have quite a few of the memorabilia from different students at Carver High, and we have information about some of the former students and what they have done and the careers that they have gone on to excel in. We have an exhibit about the farming community and what it was like. That included, our Black farmers like the Massengills.
Yes.
We have had a myriad of different exhibits that do not pull in specifically local history, but pull in Black history in general. For instance, we had an exhibit that spoke directly about Pahokee.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which the Glades area also likes to boast about their athletes.
That's right.
That come from their town, and they have the right. There have been some.
Well, they have the right. But Charlene, I gotta get it straight while we talk. I'm glad you brought that up. In my 4 years of high school at Atlantic High School in Delray Beach, we opened our football season with Glade Central. First game of the year. And the second game of the year is Pahokee. In my 4 years of high school, we did not lose to either one of them.
There you go. There you go.
Well, now, if they want to brag, they can brag. But my 4 years.
It's on the record.
It's on the record. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But that's a great farming community.
Yeah.
My family came to Delray on both sides. My maternal side, my mom's from Quincy. But they migrated from South Carolina through Georgia to Quincy to Delray Beach. And then my dad's side of the family, they're from the islands. They came from the Bahamas, right? But they came to Delray farming.
That's right.
That's how we all got there.
That's right.
Right.
My father came from Nassau as part of the agricultural, the contractual agreement that the Glades had with a lot of Bahamian workers. They brought them over.
Yes.
It was always called on the contract, right? And he came over in the 1930s and started working on the Glades and would tell stories about how should I call it, shocked the Bahamian men were at the way they were treated when they got here. Because here they are thinking they are coming over to the U.S. to help out, to assist. And they're treated like, not even third-class citizens.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So they my father and his friends, other Bahamian men, would talk about that constantly, about how they were treated when they got here in the U.S. But Bahamians were one of the first people groups to come here when South Florida started being settled. When people started coming and building houses along the coast. Right. The Bahamian people who came first.
Right. Yeah. It's a bunch of us here, right? And so, like my dad, and matter of fact, my uncle was the first Black African American police officer in Delray. Melbourne. Butler. We call him Uncle Moody. And so we got strong history, man. It's just been a lot of folks from the islands, and we all came here to work.
Yes.
And for a better life.
That's exactly why we came.
That's why we came. And I tell you what, nothing's easy.
No, what is it? But when you have that conviction,
yes,
you're here, why you're here, and you have every right to be here,
yes,
then you're not gonna let other ideas stop you. And that's what's in the mindset of Delrayans. That's how we think.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so awesome. All right, so talk to me about the Cultural Leadership Academy at the Spady Museum.
So our children, and I have to say, and let me clarify, we are not an after-school program.
Okay.
We work with children of any school or after-school program that are interested and committed in working with us.
Right.
And what we do is through activities, and sometimes just straight up lecture. We teach these children our history. They come to the museum on a monthly basis and they get a lesson. The lesson is always tied to the exhibition that we have up at the time. So right now we have the settlement period, strong communities emerging. We're talking about what was going on in the US during the Reconstruction period. So the Civil War is over. Black people are free, quote unquote.
Right, quote unquote.
Right, because the 13th Amendment has that little hook in there.
Right. There you go.
Free except. And so we talked to them about what was going on in the US, and then at the same time, what was going on in Delray. People who were coming, where they were coming from, and why they were coming, and how they contributed. Builders and medical professionals, and midwives and teachers, and all of the skilled farmers, all of the skills that Black people brought with them when they came to Delray, and how they helped to set the community up.
Wow.
So our children come in once a month and they get a history lesson, and then we do quarterly health and wellness retreats. We just had one last Saturday.
Awesome.
So we teach them how to handle things, how to handle life. We had a speaker in from FAU who talked about self-esteem. We had another speaker who came in and talked about wealth building.
Awesome.
So we do that on a quarterly basis. And then the rest of it is cultural outings and activities, creating art, going to live performances, going out for meals, doing cultural activities to give our children some exposure. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the Loxahatchee Wildlife Reserve and they canoed.
Oh, wow. So
give the children those cultural experiences. So when they're done with Delray, know about the history, and they've tried a few things. They've got good at some things. They've learned they like what they don't like, and they have a better start when they decide to select their careers or their college education.
Absolutely, because Charlene, it's about exposure.
That's what it's about.
Sometimes kids miss it because they hadn't been exposed, and it takes kids until they're adulthood, way into their adulthood,
right?
Where they can find themselves,
right?
I really believe that in some places, our education system failed our kids.
Yes.
Because nowadays you look at the cost of college. How can they afford that? If they're not scholarship,
right?
And if they can get in and bar up to their necks, how are they going to pay it back if they can't get a job?
Exactly right.
Because you and I both know, just because you got a college degree don't mean you're going to get a job.
Not at all.
But
there are a lot of people without a college degree that are making a lot more money than people with those degrees.
Well, we have, I don't know how many we have some billionaires who don't have college degrees.
That's right.
And I'm telling you, I've been in Atlanta since 1981. I'm telling my age now. You just graduated high school in 81.
That's
I came here in 1981, and I can remember hearing these stories, or in the Constitution, Atlanta Constitution, they would write stories about these kids who would enroll in Georgia Tech, and in their dorm rooms, they start these businesses and they never get their degrees.
That's right.
But they're highly successful.
That's right.
I mean, what are you going to school for anyway? To earn a living, right?
When I was in college, there was a young girl there were two young girls who always had cash. The one who could braid hair. And the one who could sew.
Yes.
She could hem pants, sew on buttons, sew on patches, the sorority patches and all those things. Always had cash.
Wow.
All the ball players came to her to get their hair braided down before they always had cash. I always tell our children, we're teaching you these skills, not just so you can make something pretty, but so that you can do it if you need to do it. And if you decide you want to do it, you have the skill already. You're
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, man.
Following in
Absolutely.
Spady's footsteps.
Exactly. And so that's what it's all about. And so you think about the time when our people came to Delray many years ago, the times that we're talking about, in the early 20s and things like that, they couldn't get jobs.
That's right.
They had to be entrepreneurs.
That's right.
A lot of them, right?
And that's exactly right.
And then the only jobs we probably could get were like farming jobs and things like that.
That's right. And we need to get back to that.
Yes.
I know that when we look back on our history, we see it as a hardship. I understand that. And a lot about our history was hard, but it forced us to be entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And now we need to come full circle and start doing that again.
Absolutely.
And there is a lot that we had. Education, I think, is one of those things that we didn't realize how good we had it until we opted to no longer have it.
Yes.
Right? We decided we wanted to desegregate our schools.
Right.
Because we thought that, white children were getting a better education than we were.
Right.
And partially we thought that because that's what we were being told.
That's right.
And come to find out, not so much. Our teachers would go way above and beyond, make sure that our children got the top-notch education. And that sort of went by the wayside once our teachers got dispersed throughout the school system. So we really, history is not in the past. History occurred, but history is with us today.
Today, absolutely.
And, if you keep looking forward and you don't learn from it, you're going to see history coming at you from the future.
That's right. It's going to repeat it. That's right.
Coming right at you.
Right at you.
So we need to start paying closer attention to the history as we walk along.
Yes.
Because it can benefit us.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, listen, Charlene, just think about this, Charlene. The things I know, the mistakes I've made in my life, I preach to my boys. Hopefully so that they don't make the same mistake.
Right.
And so all I'm doing is repeating a little history. Look, we don't want to go back and do this.
Exactly.
I've learned this lesson, so let me teach you what I've learned.
Yeah.
And I hope you run with it. Because if you don't, you may find yourself in that same kind of trouble.
And I never want it to be said that it happened because you never told me.
Exactly.
Because I didn't know.
That's right.
Yeah. You're going to know now whether what you do with that, that's on you.
That's up to you.
But you have to know. You have to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, man, that is awesome. And so you got the Cultural Leadership Academy. And what do y'all do like during Kwanzaa? Y'all do a special?
Yeah, we do a special Kwanzaa celebration. We celebrate on day one.
Okay.
Unity. And we pull the community together. We have Kwanzaa ceremonies. We educate about the meaning of Kwanzaa and where it comes from and how we should incorporate it into our lives. And then we have, performances and food. This year, 2021, we partnered with an organization called Kwanzaa 365 Live. They're in Broward County.
Okay.
Their goal is to make Kwanzaa a tri-county event.
Okay.
And celebrate each of the 7 days in a different county.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we just began this collaboration with them in 2021. We're going to continue it to see if we can't pull this off and make it a tri-county celebration for 7 days.
Wow.
Yes.
That'll be nice. See, I gotta start coming to Delray on some of these occasions you having down there, right? You gotta pull me in, sister. You gotta pull me in.
Not a problem. I'll be glad to.
I gotta get down there. Hey, one thing for sure, I love Delray Beach. And any excuse to come home, I'm ready. I'm ready. I don't need too many excuses. But so tell me before we get off, we got a few more minutes left. So talk to me about that legend in your home, Miss Vera Farrington.
Wow. Okay. So she first of all, we can't go anywhere without people running up and saying, "You were my teacher when I was in," fill in the blank. You never really know the impact that you have on people.
Yes.
And it's a blessing to live long enough, as long as she has lived, to be able to see her students survive and thrive and come back and thank her for all that she did for them. Because of course, none of us were grateful when we were getting that spanking.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Everybody's grateful now, and I'm talking black and white.
Yes.
It's across the cultural spectrum.
Yes.
She walked into this museum project not knowing what she was doing. She didn't know anything about running a museum, but what she did know was that she needed to preserve the Black history so she could continue to educate.
Yes.
So that's where her lifeline is educating children.
Yes, absolutely.
She knew Mr. Pompey too.
Yes.
So they knew they needed to make this happen so this history could be preserved. It's the preserving of the paperwork, the photographs, the documents, the books, and all of that. That's the only way the museum can maintain its credibility.
Yes.
Because everybody has a story. And can tell a story,
right?
But no one will 100% believe your story until you pull that paperwork out and say, "See, it's written right here."
There you go. There you go.
And
there
so
you go.
That's the value of a museum.
Yes,
is to preserve those stories. And she knew that, and so she wanted to get the museum established so that she could get back to the business of educating. So she pushed through, and she reached out to everybody she had ever met for help on getting this project going. And of course, everybody came to the table. Most people who were asked, not all.
Right, of course.
Not all. There's always that.
Right.
Yep. But most people stepped up and they got the museum together. And I am so grateful to be able to continue her legacy and Mr. Pompey's legacy and Mr. Spady's legacy and preserving this information so that when I'm long gone, generations will be able to walk in there and know that Delray has a rich, deep history.
Yes. So let me ask you real quick then. So how do we continue to support the Spady Museum? How do we give donations and all that kind of stuff?
So there's several things. The most important thing is for our citizens of Delray who, when they lose their loved ones, it's a really, really horrible time.
Yes.
But they have to remember to, especially when they're going through their documentation of their loved ones, remember to make a box and don't take it to the dumpster. Donate it to the museum and let museum professionals sort through it.
Yes.
And, we'll pull out the Publix receipts. We don't need those. Every now and then you'll see something like a poll tax receipt. For when Black people had to pay to be able to vote. Those are important documents. That's key.
Absolutely.
That's key. So don't throw your loved ones' documents away. Donate them to the Spady Museum.
Yes. That's powerful. That's powerful. That's powerful.
And then, of course, become a member.
Yes.
So that your financial contribution can sustain the museum year over year.
Yes.
One person would have to donate millions of dollars to sustain the museum.
Yes.
But 1,000 people would only have to donate $100.
Absolutely.
Right? And if we could get 20,000, 50,000 people to become a member, you're looking at a $5 donation.
Yes.
Every year.
Yes.
So become a member.
Yes.
Put your money where your legacy is.
Yes.
If you want your great-grandchildren to know who your family was, make sure the organization that's preserving their story is receiving your donations. Those are the two primary ways that people can help.
Okay, well, good. Well, let's do it. Hey, guys, y'all listening to the show tonight. Y'all got to give to the Spady Museum. And just like she said, just become a member. Let us all become members and support our history. Our history is important to us.
Yes, it is.
And the older you get, the more important it's going to be. Trust me that, right? Trust me that. And so, well, let's get involved. Y'all just get involved with what we're doing in Delray Beach.
Yes.
You don't even have to be from Delray to get involved.
That's
Some
right.
of you guys on this show tonight who are watching this show tonight have been to the town of Delray Beach. You vacation in Delray Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Always talk about it's such a lovely place.
Mm-hmm.
We're right there on the ocean line.
Mm-hmm.
Get involved with what we're doing to support the history of our city.
Exactly.
So do it. And you can go to Google the Speedy Museum.
Or go to SpadyMuseum.com.
Right. Mm-hmm. And everything is listed that we talked about tonight. And then there you can find out how to become a member and how to support us financially. Charlie, you got anything else you want to say before we get off?
I want to thank you for allowing me to come on with you tonight and talk about what I love, which is my Delray Beach.
Hey, listen, we got to do this. We're going to do this some more, right? We got to do it again.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I was really upset that I didn't try to get you the first of the month, right?
Okay.
And so I was hoping that it was going to work out, and by God's grace, it did.
Yes, it did. And like I tell people all the time, I'll be black next month, so there's no rush. I'll still be
Exactly. So listen, guys, this is our show for tonight. If you like it, comment, share it with your friends. Talk about the history in Delray Beach. It is so important, not only to me, but to all of us. And so get involved with what we're doing. This is 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host, Bobby Butler. And tonight we had the executive director of the Spady Museum, Charlene Farrington, with us tonight. Thanks so much again for being with us.